Hello everyone, my name is Grandma. His name is Tommy. I'm 10 years old. Today I'll talk about science in lesson 67 in 4th grade. And first, I will review about some flashcards. This is mimicry, camouflage, parasitic relationship, symbiotic relationship. And this one is ant, wasp, termite, praying mantis, mosquito, monarch butterfly, ladybug, fly, grasshopper, flea, firefly, dragonfly, cricket, cockroach, and I will review about the invertebrate characteristics. And they have no backbone and usually have weak muscles. And usually are small animals with soft body and may have an exoskeleton, cold-blooded. And I will review about the insect parts. Compound eye, antennae, head, thorax, abdomen, spiritual, and the complete metamorphosis are egg, larva, pupa, adult. The incomplete are egg, nymph, adult. And today I will talk about Jean-Henri Fabre. And he's a naturalist and entomologist, and Charles Darwin is a man who declared that evolutionary theory is true. And Jean-Henri Fabre grew up in France about 200 years ago, and at that time scientists knew very little about the lives and habitat of insects. Most people have collections of dead insects, but Jean-Henri Fabre managed to study insects in their own habitat, living insects in their own habitat, in their own habitat. And when he was born to a poor peasant family in a small French village, and as a naturalist, he studies nature. In the summer, his job was to take the ducks to the pond for a swim. And along the way, he had a chance to study nature too. And in the winter, his family lived in a barn where they were kept warm by the heat of the animals. And then when he grew up, he began teaching science. And he was fired from one of his teaching jobs because he allowed girls to attend his science class. And a man named Charles Darwin says that the evolutionary theory was true, and that invertebrates like insects and jellyfish slowly evolved into animals like lizards, fishes, and horses. And he believed that long ago there were no humans, and then Some monkey-like creatures with pointed ears, a hairy body, have a tail, a hairy body, and pointed ears, evolved into human. And when he was 80 years old, he wrote 10 books for adults and was very famous. And I will read. Jean-Henri Fabre, the world's greatest entomologist. Jean-Henri Fabre grew up in France about 200 years ago. At that time, scientists knew very little about the lives of habitats of insects. Many people had collections of dead insects, but Fabre was the first to devote his life to observe and describe the behavior of insects in their natural habitats. He wrote 10 books for adults describing what he saw in the fields and gardens around his home. Fabre delighted French school children with his famous science textbooks, which combined careful description of nature with testimony of his own faith in God who designed and created the natural world. Jean-Henri Fabre was born to a poor peasant family in a small French village. From his earliest childhood, little Henry was a naturalist, a person who studies nature. He keenly observed the world of grasshoppers and sparrows, snails, and lizards. He was always on the lookout for beetles, water weeds, and bits of fossils. In the icy winter, he and his family had to live in a barn, keeping warm by the heat of the animals. In the hot summer, it was Henry's job to drive the duck to the pond each day, giving him time to study nature along the way. His one-room, one-window country schoolhouse was often filled with pigs and chickens that wandered in. But the boy learned reading, writing, and arithmetic, and he even began studying Latin. Henry worked his way throughout school and then taught for many years in French schools. There, his students loved him. He was fired from one teaching job because he allowed girls to attend his science classes. Throughout his life, Jean-Henri Fabre spent every spare moments with insects that he found so fascinating. He researched bees, wasps, beetles, grasshoppers, and crickets. He discovered the importance of instincts and carefully described how the insects behave together. Not until he was almost 80 years old, however, others didn't recognize the importance of his scientific work. He was now known as the world's greatest entomologist. When Fabre was about 35 years old, an English naturalist named Charles Darwin published a book about evolution. Darwin said that God did not create the living world as we know it, as the Bible says. Darwin believed that all living things somehow develop over long periods of time. He says that invertebrates like insects and jellyfish slowly turned into vertebrates like fish, lizards, and horses. He also said that there were no people at first, but then some tree-dwelling monkey-like creatures with tails, hairy bodies, and pointed ears gradually developed into people. Fabre knew that this was not what the Bible says. God created everything in the world, and He made the first man, Adam, from the dust of the ground, not from the creature like a monkey. We know that people are God's most special creation because the Bible says we were made in His image. When other people started believing Charles Darwin, Jean Fabre chose to believe in God instead. Fabre has observed the beautiful design of nature much too closely to believe that it could be just an accident. He did not think that Darwin's hypothesis was a reasonable or sensible explanation of the wonders we see in the world around us. He declared, I observe, I experiment, and I let the facts speak for themselves. The facts force me to disagree with Darwin's theories. Although many people of Fabre's day turned away from God, thinking that evolution was true. Jean Henry Fabre did not. He testified, without God, I understand nothing. Without Him is all darkness. You could take my skin from me more easily than my faith in God. And that is all what I want to talk in this science lesson. Thank you for your listening and watching. Goodbye.